The room was cold and bright, full of noise. Aliens from many worlds stood in lines, whispering and pointing. This was the pairing hall, where orphans were chosen as mates, helpers, or workers. And today, one small alien girl stood all alone. On a metal platform, shivering. Her name was Lyra. She was thin, with pale purple skin and big glowing eyes that once held hope. Now they only held silence. Every week, beings came and scanned her body, checked her genetics, then walked away. She had been here for 2 years, and not once had anyone picked her. Some said she was broken. Some called her cursed. They said she could not reproduce, that her DNA was flawed. But no one ever asked how she felt. No one ever noticed how tightly. She held the blanket around her shoulders, like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Today was no different. Aliens came, looked at her, shook their heads, and left. A group of young males laughed cruelly. Who would ever want that thing? One of them said. Lyra turned her head away and pretended not to hear. She was used to this. She was used to being invisible. But then, the door opened, and someone new stepped inside. He was not like the others. He was human, tall, dressed in a simple jacket, with a rough beard and kind, tired eyes. His name was Jack, and he had come for supplies, not for people. He wasn't planning to stay long. He just needed ship fuel and some food cubes. But when he passed the pairing hall, something stopped him. It was her eyes. Lyra looked at him for only a second, then looked away. But that second was enough. There was pain in those eyes, yes, but also strength. And something else, something Jack hadn't seen in a long time. The silent scream of someone trying not to cry. He stepped closer to the glass, staring at her profile. A nearby alien official noticed and walked over, smiling in that fake, oily way. "Ah, interested in the orphan?" The official asked. "She's not worth much, of course. Can't mate, can't breed. But may be useful for cleaning or comfort." Jack frowned. "What's wrong with her?" he asked. The official shrugged. "Defective genes, poor health. Nobody wants her. Not even her own kind." Jack looked at Lyra again. She was holding a small drawing in her hands, something she had made herself. A picture of 2 figures standing under a sun, holding hands. One looked like her. The other looked human. Jack's heart twisted. Why is she still here if no one wants her? He asked. "She'll be recycled soon," the alien whispered. "There's no point in keeping defective stock forever." That was it. Jack stepped forward and said clearly, "I want her." The room went quiet. Everyone turned, some laughing, some shocked. Lyra's eyes widened, but she said nothing. She had heard fake promises before. "You're making a mistake, human," the official warned. Jack didn't care. "I want her," he repeated. Now, within an hour, the papers were signed, the fee was paid, and Lyra was standing in front of him. Her hands shook as she held her drawing close, afraid he might snatch it away. Jack knelt down and looked her in the eye. "What's your name?" he asked gently. Lyra," she whispered. "Well, Lyra," Jack said, "you're coming with me." She stared at him, frozen. No one had ever said that before. He offered his hand, and slowly, very slowly, she reached out and touched it. Her fingers were cold, trembling, but Jack didn't pull away. They walked toward the ship together. People stared, some still laughing, others whispering warnings. "She's broken," they said. "She's useless. She's a waste of space." Jack didn't listen. Lyra walked beside him, still unsure, still scared. But somewhere deep inside, something warm began to flicker. A small hope, a small thought. Maybe I'm not nothing, she thought. Maybe someone wants me, and for the first time in her life. Lyra held someone's hand and didn't let go. The room was cold and bright, full of noise. Aliens from many worlds stood in lines, whispering and pointing. This was the pairing hall, where orphans were chosen as mates, helpers, or workers. And today, one small alien girl stood all alone on a metal platform, shivering. Her name was Lyra. She was thin, with pale purple skin and big glowing eyes that once held hope. Now they only Held silence. Every week, beings came and scanned her body, checked her genetics, then walked away. She had been here for 2 years, and not once had anyone picked her. Some said she was broken. Some called her cursed. They said she could not reproduce, that her DNA was flawed. But no one ever asked how she felt. No one ever noticed how tightly. She held the blanket around her shoulders, like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Today was no different. Aliens came, looked at her, shook their heads, and left. A group of young males laughed cruelly. Who would ever want that thing? One of them said. Lyra turned her head away and pretended not to hear. She was used to this. She was used to being invisible. But then, the door opened, and someone new stepped inside. He was not like the others. He was human, tall, dressed in a simple jacket, with a rough beard and kind, tired eyes. His name was Jack, and he had come for supplies, not for people. He wasn't planning to stay long. He just needed ship fuel and some food cubes. But when he passed the pairing hall, something stopped him. It was her eyes. Lyra looked at him for only a second, then looked away. But that second was enough. There was pain in those eyes, yes, but also strength. And something else, something Jack hadn't seen in a long time. The silent scream of someone trying not to cry. He stepped closer to the glass, staring at her profile. A nearby alien official noticed and walked over, smiling in that fake, oily way. "Ah, interested in the orphan?" The official asked. "She's not worth much, of course. Can't mate, can't breed. But may be useful for cleaning or comfort." Jack frowned. "What's wrong with her?" he asked. The official shrugged. "Defective genes, poor health. Nobody wants her. Not even her own kind." Jack looked at Lyra again. She was holding a small drawing in her hands, something she had made herself. A picture of 2 figures standing under a sun, holding hands. One looked like her. The other looked human. Jack's heart twisted. Why is she still here if no one wants her? He asked. "Should be recycled soon," the alien whispered. "There's no point in keeping defective stock forever." That was it. Jack stepped forward and said clearly, "I want her." The room went quiet. Everyone turned, some laughing, some shocked. Lyra's eyes widened, but she said nothing. She had heard fake promises before. "You're making a mistake, human," the official warned. Jack didn't care. "I want her," he repeated. Now, within an hour, the papers were signed, the fee was paid, and Lyra was standing in front of him. Her hands shook as she held her drawing close, afraid he might snatch it away. Jack knelt down and looked her in the eye. "What's your name?" he asked gently. Lyra," she whispered. "Well, Lyra," Jack said, "you're coming with me." She stared at him, frozen. No one had ever said that before. He offered his hand, and slowly, very slowly, she reached out and touched it. Her fingers were cold, trembling, but Jack didn't pull away. They walked toward the ship together. People stared, some still laughing, others whispering warnings. "She's broken," they said. "She's useless. She's a waste of space." Jack didn't listen. Lyra walked beside him, still unsure, still scared, but somewhere deep inside, something warm began to flicker. A small hope, a small thought. Maybe I'm not nothing, she thought. Maybe someone wants me, and for the first time in her life, Lyra held someone's hand and didn't let go. The stars outside the window stretched like rivers of light as the ship glided through warp space. Inside, silence filled the cockpit, broken only by soft mechanical hums and blinking control lights. Lyra sat beside Jack now, not across from him, not behind him, beside him. That small change meant everything. She still didn't speak much, but her silence was no longer made of fear. It was quiet curiosity, quiet watching, quiet learning. Jack leaned back in his chair and tapped a few buttons, bringing up the navigation screen. "We're about 2 days from the Terran outpost," he said. "That's where I'm delivering this cargo." Lyra nodded slowly, her eyes following every glowing icon on the screen. She was always watching, always listening, like a sponge that had been dry for years, finally soaking in the world. Jack glanced at her. "You want to try steering?" he asked. Her head snapped toward him in surprise. "Me?" "Yeah, why not?" he said. "It's just cruise mode right now, nothing dangerous." Lyra stared at the console like it was alive. Jack smiled and gently guided her small hand toward the control stick. Her fingers trembled as they wrapped around it. Jack kept his hand over hers and guided her gently. "Like this," he said. "Smooth, slow. You're not fighting the ship, you're dancing with it." Lyra's eyes widened. She never imagined touching a ship like this, let alone being allowed to fly one. She had always been told she was too weak, too broken, too worthless, but now she was flying, even if just for a moment. Jack leaned back, watching her. "See? You're already better than half the rookies I've met," he joked. She didn't laugh, but she smiled, just a little, and for Jack, that was enough. They continued their journey, hopping from system to system, avoiding the busy trade routes. Jack preferred the quiet, and Lyra seemed to as well. She never asked questions like, "Why me?" or "What happens next?" She just stayed close and followed his lead. And Jack never asked her to be anyone else. One evening, while Jack was fixing a loose panel in the cargo bay, he heard a small sound, a hum. It was coming from Lyra, sitting on a crate nearby, drawing with a piece of chalk she had found. She was humming, a soft, strange tune, not human. Not from any species Jack knew, but it was beautiful. He stopped working and listened quietly when she noticed. She went silent. "Sorry," she mumbled. Jack shook his head. "Don't stop," he said. "That was nice." "It's a lullaby," she said softly. "My mother used to sing it before she—" Her voice trailed off, but Jack understood. "You remember her?" he asked gently. Lyra nodded. "She had warm hands," she said, "and big eyes like mine, but not sad like mine." Jack didn't push further. He just sat down beside her and looked at the stars through the open cargo hatch. "You know, people say humans are tough," he said, "but the truth is, the strongest people I've met were the ones who kept going after everyone gave up on them." Lyra glanced at him. "Like you?" she asked. Jack laughed, a dry sound. "I'm not that strong," he said. "But maybe you are." That night something shifted. Lyra started speaking more, small things, like asking where Jack was from, what food he liked, how many planets he had seen. Jack answered everything, always patient, always gentle. In return, Lyra began to tell him things she had never told anyone. About the center where she was kept, about the cold nights, the endless tests, the silent stares, about how she learned not to cry because crying only brought pain. Jack listened, never interrupting, never judging. And Lyra felt something growing, something new, something powerful. She felt safe. But safety didn't last forever. One day, while refueling on a quiet moonbase, Jack was approached by a stranger, a thin alien with glowing red eyes and a smooth voice. "You're traveling with one of them," the stranger said. "One of what?" Jack asked, pretending not to know. "A caste-failed hybrid," the alien sneered. "Her kind should not be alive, let alone bonded to a human." Jack didn't flinch. "She's none of your business," he said firmly. But the alien only smiled. "She's rare human," he whispered. "Others will come for her." Then he vanished into the shadows. Jack returned to the ship with a storm in his chest. He didn't tell Lyra about the stranger, not yet, but he checked the security shields, scanned for trackers, and updated their route. They would be taking the long way now, the quiet way. That night, Lyra noticed the change. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Jack hesitated, then said, "Maybe. Are we in danger?" "Maybe." Lyra looked down. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I bring trouble." Jack shook his head. "You bring purpose," he said, "and I've lived without that for far too long." Outside, the stars kept moving, and inside, a human and an alien orphan, both unwanted, both misfits, found something rare. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of it. the kind that comes from seeing someone, truly seeing them, and choosing to stay. Asterisk. The ship drifted quietly between the stars. Far from busy space routes, Jack was making tea in the galley while Lyra studied a map of the galaxy on the main screen. She had grown more curious in the last few days, asking questions, pointing at planets, learning slowly. Her eyes sparkled when she discovered something new, and Jack? He had started smiling again, without even realizing it. But peace does not last long in a galaxy full of secrets, especially when one secret was living right under Jack's nose. That evening, Lyra complained of a strange pain in her chest. Jack rushed to her side, worried. She clutched her ribs, her skin slightly glowing. "I feel strange," she whispered. Jack helped her lie down on the medbed and activated the ship's auto-med scanner. The screen flashed, blinked, and beeped. Then a cold, robotic voice spoke. "Alert. Unknown mutation sequence detected in subjects." "Cellular structure," Jack frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" The medbot scanned again, then replied, "Subject is undergoing dormant species activation. Genetic shift in progress." Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "I didn't do anything," she cried. "I swear. I don't want to be a monster." Jack quickly sat beside her and took her hand. "You're not a monster," he said softly. "We'll figure this out." Her body burned with heat, her fingers glowing faintly under the skin. It looked like stars were pulsing beneath the surface. Then came the shaking, her back arched, her breathing quickened. Jack tightened his grip, refusing to let go. He shouted at the medbot, "Give her something, stabilize her." But the bot only replied, "Stabilizer's ineffective. Subject is entering natural metamorphic state." Lyra screamed, a sound filled with fear and confusion, but Jack held her the entire time. It lasted only a few minutes, but for both of them, it felt like hours. Then silence. Her body stopped shaking, her breathing calmed. Her skin, once pale purple, now shimmered faintly with silver veins. Her eyes slowly opened, no longer soft lavender, but a glowing golden hue. Jack stared, speechless. She looked like herself, and yet not. Stronger, brighter, more alive. "What just happened to me?" she whispered weakly. Jack helped her sit up slowly. "I think you changed," he said, in a way no one thought was possible. The medbot began listing new findings. "Fertility markers restored," it said. "Telepathic pathways activated. Rare evolutionary event detected." Jack looked at Lyra, shocked. "They said you couldn't breed," he said quietly. She nodded, still dazed. "That's why no one wanted me." "But they were wrong," Jack replied. "You weren't broken, Lyra. You were just waiting to grow." Tears welled up in her glowing eyes. "Then why did everyone throw me away?" Jack didn't have an answer, so he just held her again. The next morning, Jack began digging into alien databases. He searched everything about Lyra's species, their genetics, and their ancient records. What he found chilled him. There were legends, stories buried in forgotten texts, stories of rare females who evolved differently, born looking weak, rejected by their kind. But when nurtured, when loved, they transformed into something powerful, beings capable of birthing the next generation of their dying race. Sacred carriers, the text called them. But over time, their kind was feared instead of honored. Jealous leaders labeled them cursed, had them killed or hidden. Jack sat back in his chair, stunned. Lyra wasn't just unique, she was important, maybe even dangerous to the wrong people. He turned around to see her standing in the doorway. "I heard everything," she said softly. Jack stood up. "Lyra, we have to be careful now," he said. "Others might come looking for you. Not to hurt you," he added, "but to own you." She looked down. "I don't want to be special," she whispered. "I just wanted someone to care." Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. "I didn't choose you because you were special," he said. "I chose you because you mattered." They were quiet for a while, then Lyra looked up. "So what do we do now?" Jack walked to the console and brought up a new route. "We find a place where no one can take you away again," he said. "And maybe we help others like you." Just as he said that, the radar beeped. A ship was following them. No ID code, no signal. Jack cursed under his breath. "They're already here," he said. He glanced at Lyra. "Ready to run?" She nodded, but her eyes no longer held fear, only fire. The alarm kept blinking, a steady red pulse on the ship's screen. Jack stared at it, jaw tight, while Lyra stood frozen behind him. The shadow of a ship followed them through deep space. No ID, no signal, no name. But they both knew who it was. "They found me," Lyra whispered, her voice barely louder than a breath. Jack nodded slowly. "The Council," he said. "They must have been watching the genetic networks." He changed their course at once, turning the ship into a wide arc. Warp drive began to warm up, but it would take a minute, just 1 minute. Behind them, the dark ship drew closer, quiet and cold like a predator in the dark. Lyra gripped the wall for balance, her eyes glowing faintly from her earlier change. "What do they want now?" she asked. "They didn't want me before." Jack's fingers flew over the console. "Now they do," he said, "because now you're valuable again. Not as a person," he added, "as a resource." A beep interrupted them, a message incoming. Jack hesitated, then hit play. The voice that filled the cockpit was smooth, deep, and full of poison. "This is Commander Elnor of the Vulcar Genetic Council." It said, "You are holding unauthorized genetic property." Lyra flinched at the word property. She wasn't a person to them, just a tool, a womb, a thing. "We request immediate transfer of the subject named Lyra." The voice continued, "She is vital to the survival of our species. She will be treated with respect and given a comfortable life." Jack scoffed. "Lies," he muttered. He hit the reply button. "You had your chance," he said coldly. "You left her to rot in a pairing hall like trash. You don't get her now." Silence followed. Then the voice returned. "You will regret this decision. Human, you are interfering with galactic law." Jack shut the message off and activated full thrusters. The ship jolted forward, trying to break away, but the enemy vessel followed, faster than expected. "They're matching our speed," Jack said. "We'll have to jump early." "But we're not aligned," Lyra warned. "It could tear the ship apart." Jack looked at her. "I'd rather risk that than hand you over." He began prepping the manual warp controls. But then, the console flashed another warning. Inbound projectile blast shook the ship, sending Lyra crashing to the floor. Jack grunted as sparks flew from a nearby panel. "They're trying to disable us," he shouted. "Not kill, just capture." Lyra got to her knees, her eyes burning with panic and fury. "I don't want to go back," she said. "I'd rather die than go back." Jack knelt beside her and gripped her shoulders. "You won't," he said. "Not while I'm breathing." Then he handed her a small device. "What's this?" she asked. "Emergency beacon," Jack replied. "If anything happens to me, activate it. It'll call a friend of mine, a pirate who owes me his life." Lyra stared at the device, her hands shaking. "I don't want to lose you," she said softly. Jack smiled. "Then let's not lose each other." Another blast hit the ship, cutting off one of the rear engines. Jack growled and flipped the emergency warp lever. "Hold on," he said. "This is gonna hurt." The ship jumped violently, not a smooth warp like before, but a jagged, painful tear through folded space. Lyra screamed, the pressure slamming her back into her seat. Jack fought the controls, keeping the ship from ripping apart mid-jump. Then silence, space around them became calm again. Jack panted heavily, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. The ship was damaged but still alive. "We made it," he said. Lyra leaned her head back, eyes wide with shock. "Where are we?" Jack glanced at the screen. "Unknown system," he said, "but far from them for now." He activated the ship's stealth mode and powered down all external signals. They would rest here for the night, hidden in silence. Later, Jack checked the ship's damage while Lyra wrapped a bandage around his arm. "You really would have died for me," she said quietly. Jack looked at her. "I still would," he replied. Lyra blinked slowly, her expression unreadable. "But why?" Jack didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because you're the first person who made me feel like I matter again. You were the one who changed me, Lyra." Tears welled up in her glowing golden eyes. For years, she had begged for someone to see her. Now someone had risked their life just to keep her free. She reached for his hand, this time without fear. "That I'll protect you too," she whispered. "I promise." Outside, the stars watched in silence, and somewhere, far away, the council burned with rage. They would not stop, not now, not ever. But Lyra was no longer a helpless orphan, and Jack was no longer a lonely traveler. Together, they were something the council had never expected, a family, and a threat. The ship drifted in silence. Hidden inside a hollow asteroid field deep in an uncharted system, Jack had shut down all power except for life support and short-range sensors. Even the lights were dim, giving the ship a quiet, eerie glow. Lyra sat at the navigation table, her fingers tracing the stars on the screen, but her mind wasn't on the stars. It was on the council, and what they would do when they caught her. "They won't stop," she said quietly. Jack was nearby, checking a damaged panel with a toolkit in hand. "No, they won't," he agreed. "But neither will I." Lyra looked at him. Her glowing golden eyes flickered with something new, not just fear, resolve. "I want to fight," she said. Jack raised an eyebrow. "Fight?" "Yes," she replied. "Not run anymore." He stood up, wiped his hands, and crossed his arms. "You sure about that?" "I'm tired of hiding," she said. "I'm tired of being prey." Jack gave a small smile. "All right then," he said. "Let's make a plan." They powered up the ship's systems just enough to run simulations. Jack taught Lyra basic targeting, shielding, and ship defense. She learned fast. Faster than any kid he'd ever trained. Her hands moved with purpose. Her mind focused. As they worked together, something changed between them. It was no longer just protector and protected. They were a team now, and the bond between them had become unbreakable. 3 days later, the council found them again. A massive warship entered the system, dark and silent like a wolf stalking its prey. Jack and Lyra were ready. The moment the enemy locked onto their position, the Falcon Jack's ship burst to life. Engines roared, shields flared, and weapons powered up. Lyra sat at the co-pilot's seat, her fingers steady on the control panel. "Ready?" Jack asked. She nodded. "Let's fly." The Falcon shot out of the asteroid field, twisting and rolling between rocks as enemy fire followed. "Rear shields down to 70. Lyra shouted, "Divert power from secondary systems." Jack replied. The ship trembled with each hit, but they pushed forward. Jack spun the ship around and fired back, sending 2 plasma bursts into the enemy's engines. Lyra targeted their comm systems, disabling their ability to call for backup. "You learning fast," Jack said. "I had a good teacher," she replied with a grin. But the council ship was bigger, stronger. They fired a heavy torpedo straight at them. Jack swerved, but not fast enough. The explosion hit the rear thruster, sending the Falcon spinning, stabilizers offline. Lyra cried. Jack gritted his teeth, grabbing the emergency override lever. "We're not going down like this." With a final burst of engine power, they steadied the ship and pulled into a tight loop. They dove low, skimming the surface of a nearby moon. The council ship followed. That's when Jack saw an old mining tunnel carved into the rock. "Hang on," he shouted. The Falcon dove into the tunnel, the walls rushing past them at terrifying speed. Inside the dark cavern, the council ship couldn't follow. They were too large, too slow. Jack cut the engines and let the ship slide to a stop inside the tunnel. They held their breath, waiting, listening. Nothing. For now they were safe again. But not for long. Jack turned to Lyra. "They won't leave," he said. Lyra looked down, her voice calm but cold. "Then we make them leave." That night, inside the tunnel, they built a trap. They rerouted the Falcon's power systems to create a false heat signature. They planted explosives along the outer wall of the tunnel's mouth. It was risky, it was crazy, but it was the only chance they had. At sunrise, the council ship sent out a scout to confirm the signal. A small cruiser flew toward the tunnel. The moment it entered, Jack triggered the trap. The tunnel wall exploded, sending fire and rock straight into the cruiser. It was gone in seconds. That's when the council ship opened full fire. But the Falcon was already airborne, climbing into space with a speed they didn't expect. Lyra launched the last set of countermeasures, blinding their targeting system. Jack fired 2 torpedoes straight into their shield array. Boom! The enemy ship trembled, their shields gone, but Jack didn't finish them. Instead, he opened a channel. "This is Jack Dawson," he said. "If you come after her again, I won't stop at disabling. She's free. And she's not yours anymore." Lyra stepped beside him, her voice calm but strong. "I'm not your property," she said. "I'm not your project. I'm someone now." The enemy didn't reply. They just turned and jumped out of the system, defeated and humiliated. The Falcon floated in silence. Jack slumped into his chair, breathing hard. Lyra looked at him, then took his hand. "We did it," she said. Jack smiled. "Yeah," he said, "we did." The stars above looked peaceful, like they had watched this galaxy fight for centuries without blinking. But inside the Falcon, things had finally changed. For the first time since Lyra came aboard, there was no fear in her eyes, no waiting for rejection, no hiding, just peace. Jack sat on the ship's edge, legs hanging over the ramp as they floated in orbit around a quiet green moon. Lyra stood beside him, watching the stars with quiet wonder. "This place is beautiful," she said softly. Jack nodded. "Untouched quiet," he said. "No councils, no labs, no rules." She closed her eyes and let the stillness wrap around her. It was the first time she had ever felt safe in open space. And the first time Jack wasn't looking over his shoulder. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked. Jack didn't answer right away. "They might," he said. "But now they know you're not alone. They know you'll fight back." Lyra turned to him, her silver-lined skin glowing gently in the moonlight. "I wasn't always strong," she said. "I was small, scared, and broken." Jack looked at her. "You were never broken," he said. "You were just waiting to become who you really are." She smiled, softly, beautifully. "I became that because of you," she whispered. Jack shook his head. With a gentle laugh, "I thought I saved you," he said. "But really, you saved me." He looked out at the stars and continued. "I was floating through life, alone, just doing jobs, eating cold food, sleeping on cold steel. Then I saw you," he said. "And suddenly I remembered what it meant to care." Lyra sat down beside him. "Back at the center," she said, "they told me I wasn't a person. They said my body was defective, that I had no purpose." She looked at her glowing hands. "But I had a purpose, didn't I?" Jack nodded firmly. "You have more than one," he said. "To survive, to inspire, and maybe to start something new." She tilted her head. "Start what?" "A future," Jack said. "One that doesn't begin in a lab or end in a cage." The two sat quietly for a moment, the windless silence of orbit surrounding them. Then Lyra asked something she had never dared before. "Can I call this ship home?" Jack looked at her and smiled. "You could call it a home," he said. "Or you could call it the first home." Her smile widened. Then her eyes sparkled with something playful. "In that case, you're my first family," she said. Jack's breath caught in his chest. She had never said anything like that before. He looked at her, and for once, the tough smuggler's mask fell completely. His voice was quiet. "I'd be honored to be that," he said. "I'm not perfect, but I won't leave you." Lyra looked down at her hands again. They glowed when I changed, she said. "Do you think there are others like me?" Jack nodded slowly. "I think there are more who were thrown away," he said. "And I think they're waiting for someone like you to give them hope." She looked at him. Then let's go find them, he smiled, and stood up, reaching out a hand. Captain Lyra, ready to begin your first mission? She laughed for the first time, pure, honest laughter. Yes, Captain Jack, she said, taking his hand. Let's find the forgotten ones. They returned inside and began making a list places where orphans were held, old records of rejected children, forgotten settlements. They wouldn't just run anymore. They would rescue. They would build something new. Lyra designed the new insignia herself, a broken star stitched back together. With a hand reaching out from one side, Jack carved it into the side of the falcon, a symbol for those left behind, and those brave enough to pick them up. Weeks passed, and word began to spread in whispers across the outer systems. The council pretended not to care, but they watched from the shadows. The girl they had called worthless was now leading a movement. Not with guns, but with kindness. Lyra had discovered the truth. She was never a burden, never a mistake. She was evolution, wrapped in innocence, powered by love. And Jack had discovered something just as powerful, that being human wasn't about war or strength or science. It was about choosing to care, even when no one else did. In a galaxy full of rules and rejection, one human and one alien orphan rewrote the story, together, not because they had to, but because they chose each other.